We've all got vices, and unfortunately mine is probably reality television. From the tame stuff like Jeopardy and Wheel of Fortune all the way to the trashiest of the trash, there's nothing quite like dinner and a whole bunch of drama I'm heavily invested into with the magical power of editing. Sometimes you gotta turn the brain off and watch a bunch of people get way too upset at each other over fishing. Symbol flourishes and all. Personally, I blame Nick Arcade. I mean, you had this fun and peppy host and Phil Moore running around and challenging kids to this messed up board game. And if they won, they got to play inside the totally real video game. And I wanted to be on this show so bad. I'd sit around watching the kids try and do the actual video challenges, fail miserably, and be yelling at the TV that I could do better. Beep, boop, bop, oh, you suck at Sonic. Sorry, kid.
Okay, she grabbed some rings. She lost the rings.
I think most people know that this whole genre of television is lowbrow, minimum effort, and probably causes a lot of brain rot. But what about video games based on reality TV? Yeah, that's a thing that exists, like, a lot. While there wasn't one for Nick Arcade or Legends of the Hidden Temple, there was one for Nickelodeon Guts, even if it barely functions. Reality TV games come in a few shapes and sizes. There's competitive game shows that have been around since the 80s, but when the latest century came around and garbage television came rolling in waves, so would the licensed video game adaptations. While we may not have gotten a playable version of Jersey Shore, we did get Duck Dynasty. 2 of them, one with more snap auto aim than a console Call of Duty. I never really thought I'd have enough to make a full video on this, but it turns out I actually do. Strap in, it's garbage day.
It's about how hard you can get hit and
So yo, it's Austin, and today we're gonna be playing as many reality TV show based video games as we can possibly find. Hopefully all the notable ones, with one goal in mind, to find a good one, if it even exists. Growing up, I didn't see a majorities on store shelves because they were either PC exclusive or bargain bin shovelware, and getting one was kind of like a curse. It was something you get for a bad birthday from a grandparent that doesn't quite understand the hobby. Like, here kiddo, have a copy of Deal or No Deal. Thanks, Grandma. Did you ever get one? Let me know. I got the weakest link for the PlayStation 1 year, which got played a grand total of 1 time. We'll be going over the whole spectrum of reality TV games, which is the perfect thing to watch, or I guess play while you're having yourself a meal. Which, by the way, this video's been sponsored by Factor. This summer, at least where I am, it's way too hot to go out and have yourself a bite to eat, so if you're wanting to eat well, you've got Factor. For those too busy or unable to cook, Factor's fresh, never frozen meals are ready in just 2 minutes. Toss them in the oven or microwave, plate them up or not, and enjoy yourself a tasty meal without any worry. Factor's got all sorts of options for every diet and lifestyle. You got keto, vegan, vegetarian, calorie smart, and protein plus. With over 34 different chef-prepared, dietitian-approved options a week, you can pick and choose in order to make your weekly box fit exactly to your tastes. This week I'm chowing down on their spicy poblano beef bowl because I'm a sucker for anything with a little kick to it. This thing is a full meal, and when I'm exhausted from playing motion control shovelware, something like this will perk me right up. Also, whenever I'm out of town, Factor is super flexible, so I can skip a week if I need to, which is perfect for those summer trips. Factor is now owned by HelloFresh, who we've done a sponsor with in the past, so if you're looking for a good bite or a meal plan, you can do so with a discount code from me. Head on over to factor75.com or click the link in the description and use my code Eruption50 to get 50% off your first Factor box. That's factor75.com and code Eruption50 for 50% off your first box today. Big ups to Factor for this sponsor, but for now, we need to sink back down to reality with the most bottom of the barrel video games possible. But if we're reaching down, I want to get this thing started with some competition. Of all the reality shows I watched as a kid, I was the most enamored with ones that resembled a sport. Not actual sports, but like climbing a mountain and getting hit with papier-mâché rocks. While I never got to search the hidden temple for a silver monkey, I do get to pretend I'm an American gladiator. You know, everyone's dream. American Gladiators was one of the strangest things growing up. I had only ever seen your more kid-friendly sport reality TV shows like Wild and Crazy Kids or Legends of the Hidden Temple, so seeing something where you actually get slapped around was a little baffling. Sheltered? Totally. But just like hockey, you'd occasionally get a full-on fight, which I guess makes sense, considering half of the show is competing against strangers to get points. Well, this hot program got an NES adaptation and would be the first in the line of what I'm calling reality TV sport games. Prior to the drama and dating-packed 2000s, most reality television was based around competition. Is it possible for me to be better than you at Thing? Well, I'm gonna try. American Gladiators, the video game, wanted to recreate that feeling. You boot it up, it's like Hoorah America, you got a bunch of incredibly ripped people on the main menu, menu, though I'm not really sure what that's supposed to be. Developed by Incredible Technologies, Gladiators lets you pick one of 5 different mini-games of varying difficulty. You don't get to pick who you play as, that's determined for you. You want to joust? You're playing as Nitro. Oh yeah. And every time someone presumably dies from this height, you get to hear this. That is surprisingly good for the NES, also a little terrifying. This is a cool concept, it just unfortunately kinda sucks, like a lot. Most of the games here are really repetitive, very hard to pull off, and you'll run out of lives in a jiffy. It's hard. The wall game has you climbing a wall while avoiding dudes, and you have to alternate pressing A and B as fast as you can. It's really easy to mess up and fall, as literally everything will knock you down, so good luck. American Gladiators isn't very good, and neither are the other versions that came out on 16-bit consoles the following year. But when it comes to reality sports games, this was one of the first, unless you count wrestling, which I mean, kind of. Though, speaking of sports entertainment, what about something that wasn't as popular? American Gladiators might have ruled syndication in the early 90s, but roller games did not. Y'all want violence? How about violence on wheels? While the legitimacy of roller games is up for debate with its extremely cartoony presentation, these men and women were definitely beating the crap out of each other and beefing over canned cheers. This thing ran for a single season with 13 episodes, which makes the fact that it has not one, but 2 separate video games even more surprising, especially because they were developed by Konami. Yeah, like prime classic Konami. Roller games for the NES and arcade, 2 very different titles. The arcade version is trying to do something similar to the television show where you spin in circles while beating the ever-living snot out of everyone in sight. It's not bad, there's just not much substance here besides running and punching for points. Roller games for the arcade seems like it would fit in as a nice one-off level in a classic Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles game. The scrolling visuals for each level look nice too. Just remember to pick the maniacs for your team so you can play as the wild green-haired woman. Now, flip it over to the console version and this is where things get cool. Here, listen. Roller games for the NES is what happens when you take a small concept and roll with it. Rather than trying to replicate the show, this is almost like a side story. The character likenesses are here, but the goal is to try and defeat aliens that are attempting to destroy the sport. The words radical and tubular don't even begin to describe this. It's a beat-em-up platformer all built around the roller skates. There's momentum to everything you do. There's a bit of a startup required to get going, which means you can also do some funky stuff with the platforming. We got auto-scrollers, we got TMNT styled levels, we can grab dudes and throw them, all while zooming around on 8 wheels. If there was ever an example of a reality television show getting an actual good video game adaptation, this would be it. Roller games is a seriously underrated gem on the NES, and considering there's absolutely no way it ever gets ported, I think y'all should all hit up your buddy Vim and give it a shot. It's not too NES difficult, and I think you'll be surprised. Maybe watch the show too if you want to see Bizarro World.
As well as the creature from the Green Lagoon.
It doesn't stop there. There's been reality sports TV shows for several decades, each with their own games. BattleBots Beyond the BattleBox on the Game Boy Advance. That's a lot of bees. Who doesn't love watching machines fight to death all for the sake of squishy human enjoyment? Sorry, I just gotta take a stance for the future Robot Wars. Well, if you do, don't play this game. Though it might be a little bit better than Robot Wars Extreme Destruction. That's right, we got games for both the American and European versions. Seriously though, if you make one of these a bit closer to Twisted Metal, you'll have my money. Which unfortunately I gave to American Ninja Warrior Challenge on the Switch, one of my worst games of 2019. It's pretty funny how Ninja Warrior transformed from this joke MXC type of show where you'd laugh at the contestants to a legit thing that people open schools and train for. Oh, how things change. But if there's one wacky obstacle course reality TV show game to talk about here, you know it's Wipeout. Oh, sorry, ABC's Wipeout. It's different. Wipeout has you going through obstacle courses and getting knocked out in all sorts of ragdolling glory. No matter the entry, you know you'll be picking some random goofy character, getting smacked so hard if it were reality, you'd definitely be dead and falling into a pit of water. For most gamers, these are the kind of games you play with your family as a kid and don't think much of. Then, for freaks like me who whip out the Xbox 360 Kinect to cleanse my palate, we've got Wipeout 3. Kinect required. We ain't side-scrolling anymore, I am the controller. And as you probably expect, it barely works. Man, I got like 10 feet between me and the camera and it still loses track of me. You run by wiggling your arms, walk by doing some biker motions, and crouch by crouching, except the Kinect keeps losing me anytime I crouch. A quality product, let's go. I do like the free motions I can do with this thing though. Lets me do dumb dances and obscene gestures on the fly. Like a lot of reality TV games, Wipeout and its 6 different versions are the type of thing that go in one ear and out the other. It's just a shame they stopped making these before John Cena joined the show. We could have had some crazy Cena ragdolling, but to be honest, the show's got more than enough.
Halfway there, living on a prayer.
Alrighty, that's enough sports and sports entertainment. It's time to abandon the rules and get a little trashy, like really trashy. Reality television does have a bad rep, and rightfully so, but what happens when you take those tacky, drama-filled TV shows and shove them into a video game? Well, I guess you get something like The Bachelor, the video game.
Experience the drama of dating.
I'm gonna buy this game. Alrighty gamers, get ready to find your soulmate by playing a Wii shovelware minigame collection. That's right, dating really is just like Mario Party. You battle other suitors out for the affection of one person, all while taking severe psychic damage by sharing a house with all 27 of them. Dating reality television has been around forever with shows like The Dating Game, but something like The Bachelor and Bachelorette really kicked the absurdity into another level. If you've never seen the parody of it, Burning Love, you really should.
And then another car came and hit it again.
Yeah, I'm sure it was dead after the
I don't think so. I don't think so.
I've been known to play me some shovelware, and The Bachelor is absolutely that. You pick your character, then engage in a series of mini games with up to 3 other players. Each of the suitors is trying to get the best scores in order to get awarded hearts, and the person with the most stars hearts at the end of the game wins the affection of the Bachelor and or et. You got group dates, and of course the fabled one-on-one, which in order to spice things up with some excitement, you catch feathers in midair, dropped by other players. I guess that's fun. But if you lose, your date falls asleep. This is dumb. When all's said and done, you finish a complete season, become the perfect suitor for this person, and ride off into the sunset, into another season to do it all again. Winning the heart of the Bachelorette over 27 others is something you're gonna do 5 separate times. I just wish they would've let me use my me. I almost think it would've been better than the style they went with. Look, I'm not above this kind of TV. If I got dinner to chow down on and no energy to absorb actual content, I'm gonna slap on Love is Blind with my partner and revel in garbage. Games for these pop up here and there. You've got the Big Brother MMO that looks like a dollar store Sims in Second Life, and then there's Love Island the game from all of those YouTube ads you've probably seen before. But these are not for me. Not that I think anyone watching this wants that. At least I hope not. Anyways, the trash must continue, and what better way than with someone who would probably throw you in the garbage. You best learn how to cook. It's time for Hell's Kitchen, also for the Wii. I'm sensing a pattern here. Gordon Ramsay, like him or not, is the king of food-based reality television. If there's a dish that needs critiquing, he's gonna slide out of the darkness and throw it on the ground. Are you an idiot sandwich? Yes, you are. Gordon's got a ton of shows out there, but one of the most famous has to be Hell's Kitchen. So there's 2 questions here. Why would anyone make this, and how does it play? The answers are Ubisoft and Diner Dash. We're done. Wrap it up, let's go. But only in Hell's Kitchen do you have a crappy CGI Gordon Ramsay cursing at you. Oh yeah, it's rated T for teen.
That's absolute rubbish. Get it in the bin.
This is definitely doing it for someone. You click buttons to make dishes and serve them to the guests, all while getting reamed out by a couple of pre-rendered Gordons. Don't worry, he says nice things too. And well, I've described the entire game. Hell's Kitchen certainly exists, and it actually might be better than Iron Chef America's Supreme Cuisine. The competition's got a game too, and it somehow has a worse art style than The Bachelor. I love how Alton Brown just kind of gyrates in the corner. Look, all I'm saying is that cooking video games aren't very common, and it's just weird that the only 2 based on reality TV came out 2 months apart. If you want a good cooking game, try Plate Up. It's like Overcooked did the fusion dance with a roguelite. Next up, it's not a roguelite, but you do get multiple choices. Duck Dynasty. I've actually covered these in the past in these videos here if you want to see me go more in depth. And yes, that does say Animal Crossing clones. Duck Dynasty was crazy popular in the 2010s, and it somehow got 2 totally different releases. One a semi-open world first-person shooter, and the other a bizarre community sim. They don't make them like this anymore. Now, the next show we're talking about may not be trashy, but the game it spawned sure was. Back in the 2000s, a lot of people were talking about MTV's Pimp My Ride, just maybe not the game. I mean, it was a cool concept. While a lot of the television has come out as allegedly fake or exaggerated, the idea of decking out a vehicle with over-the-top stuff is evergreen content. Absolutely, Mr. Exhibit. Please take my bottom-tier sedan and soup it up. Make it shoot out playing cards or something. I don't care. I just want to be on television. Frankly, the idea of this as a game isn't terrible. You take some crappy cars and you pimp them out. Unfortunately, there's barely anything to do. There's no racing. The actual customization is the bare minimum. The whole thing is picking a character, doing some mini games to raise money, and then rushing to different spots on the map in order to purchase the pimping. I hope you're ready to ghost ride the whip. You drive the car all around Pimp City, yes, that's what it's actually called, and press buttons in order to QTE your way to a few $1,000s. Then pick from a list of options, continue dancing and riding that whip, and maybe you'll win. I don't know. You don't even have to worry about taking damage either. You can just go on a murderous rampage through the city, smashing into things left and right without a care in the world. Apparently this is pimpin'. The entire loop is through in about 20 minutes, and then you've seen a vast majority of everything this title has to offer. Well, besides the cutscenes, which is just Exhibit making people scream.
This job is getting too dangerous.
As you can probably expect, Pimp My Ride reviewed poorly, like everywhere, which makes it all the more confusing that it got a sequel. Pimp My Ride Street Racing on the Nintendo DS and PlayStation 2 all the way in 2009. I'll let you think about that for a second. Here's a hint, the show ended in 2007 and the PS3 was 4 years old. This one's just as the name implies, a racer, one where you swap out a few parts every now and then. There's no exhibit, there's no music beyond the main menu, and it does nothing to resemble the show in the slightest. How are you gonna make a Pimp My Ride without vehicle customization? Activision? Pimpless.
I'm the juggernaut, bitch. I'm gonna hit you with your own pimp.
All right, enough trash. Let's move on to something a little more educational. Well, educational. I don't think many people expected the History and Discovery channels to become this weird vortex of reality TV shows over time, but it happened. I mean, what better way to get the kids learning about the Revolutionary War than with a video game? Although I'd hardly call a lot of the History Channel's releases reality television, with the exception of Pawn Stars the game for mobile. Look, I've played some good mobile games, I'm sure you have too. Pawn Stars is not one of those. Though how they got away with shoving Mario into this, I'll never understand. There's not much on the history front, but change the channel to Discovery and here's where things get wild. The Discovery Channel went from weird outdoorsy documentaries and dinosaur specials to stuff like Mythbusters, which was cool. That actually got itself a game in the form of a shenanigans simulator. We gotta go back to the turn of the century though. We need strong personalities, nauseating editing, and something that hasn't been thought about in 20 years. Monster Garage, a show that feels like a mix of rocket power and a YouTube poop.
Hillbilly style.
For those who don't know, Monster Garage is basically Pimp My Ride, except instead of Exhibit, it's hosted by the self-proclaimed great-great-grandson of Jesse James, Jesse James. Each episode, they'd assemble a team of people, give them a week and $3,000 to $5,000, a vehicle, and one simple mission, make it a monster, to whatever specific guidelines. Sometimes you just want to put a minigun on top of a car, like Twisted Metal, just in real life. So what happens when you turn that concept into a full video game? Well, you get Monster Garage, only on Xbox. That's right, Jesse here joins the ranks of Crimson Sky's High Road to Revenge as stuck on the big mean green machine, what with its 38 on Metacritic. The concept here's not terrible. You got a mission, you deck out a vehicle, and then you take it into this abandoned dockyard, the only level they designed to test the abilities. Flamethrowers, explosives, you gotta destroy stationary objects. It's just everything about it feels bad. The cars control poorly, the vehicle creation's just pressing buttons on a menu and watching it happen. Car Mechanic Simulator has a lot more in the gameplay department, and that's really sad. I don't know why this was an Xbox exclusive, or why they presumably paid money to make that happen, but it's definitely the reason Sony made Final Fantasy XVI an exclusive 20 years later. Monster Garage is, at least to my research, the first Discovery Channel reality television show to become a video game, a lineage that's still going to this day. And nothing says lineage more than American Chopper. What happens if you take Monster Garage, take out the fun game show aspect of it, and instead focus on the day-to-day life? Give it a little pinch of domestic arguments and fighting, and you get yourself American Chopper. Because yes, my son, we need to capitalize on how much I hate you. This thing's been on and off the air for decades now, but in the mid-2000s, we'd get not one, but two different video games. Who asked for this? I'm not sure, but Activision was more than happy to make them both happen. As you can probably imagine, American Chopper is pretty terrible. The first one has you playing as the latest hire of the Orange County Choppers, and the entire video game is a series of point A to B fetch quests and janky racing. There's a surprising lack of motorcycle creation in a game about a TV show about creating custom choppers. I mean, I guess there's cutscenes, that's something. Choppers is a nothing game that doesn't have much to do, but it was a step above some of the shovelware you'd expect from this type of thing. There's multiple places and different maps to explore. It just has really poor controls, which is not what you want from a racing title. But at the very least, we've got a style point system, one that'll reward you for scaring pedestrians, which I did by crashing. Then it got a sequel, one of the only ones in this video with one. American Choppers 2 Full Throttle. Paul and Paulie are back, and this time you can actually customize your choppers. This thing came out a mere year later, and according to the internet and the little bit that I played is actually a little better. Instead of playing as a Discovery Channel original character, this time you pick your poison from the cast, each with their own intro video.
Hey, I don't want to ask the same thing twice. The second time, I'm going to use my foot.
In case you guys weren't aware, Paul Sr. has anger issues. Wow. Full Throttle, no, not that one, feels a little more like they wanted to create something resembling the TV show, but with a bit more arcadey action. I mean, it's still American Choppers. The cast are arguing, competing with each other, and do things in a way that more resembles a video game. The bikes control a bit tighter, and it's weird to sit here and be like, yeah, American Choppers 2 isn't terrible. I just don't know if anyone would want this over the many good racing games that released before and after it, even though you could tell they tried. I mean, if you look at 2005 alone, you got Burnout Revenge, Midnight Club 3, Mario Kart DS, Need for Speed Most Wanted, and Juiced. But only Full Throttle's got full motorcycle customization, which you beef up by getting style points. This game's a weird one. There's a few more Discovery games here. You got Deadliest Catch. There's a handful of those, a few of which are fishing simulators, the other being a Wii minigame collection. There's Gold Rush the game, Diesel Brothers the game, and one of the newer releases, Street Outlaws, which, sorry, that's enough vehicles for the day. But the final Discovery Channel reality TV show game that I want to talk about is about a guy that drinks his own piss. I couldn't believe it when I saw it. Man vs. Wild, the video game. The adventures of Bear Grylls trying to survive in wacky situations, now playable from your smelly futon. Man vs. Wild was wildly successful television for several years, so if there was one reality TV show that was gonna get a game, this was it. It's just, as you would probably assume, god-awful. Clocking in at a girthy 4 hours, Man vs. Wild, the game, feels like a hidden object title shoved into a janky platformer, one where Bear looks totally normal and has a model that definitely blinks. In Man vs. Wild, you go through different levels that are essentially survival scenarios. Can you do certain objectives in certain environments without, well, dying? This is meant to be an educational experience for kids and young adults. Gamers need to learn those survival skills too, you know? And you do that by killing a snake, peeing into its skin, and drinking it. Yep, that's a game mechanic. Barely restored any thirst either, shame. I love that you can tell what year this came out based on the sprint animation. The camera's shaking more than a Bourne film. Man vs. Wild is the sports entertainment version of a life and death situation for sure, as the first thing you do in every level are airborne tricks while skydiving for points. Just make sure to open your parachute in time, otherwise you'll crash right into the side of a tree. And live, of course, that's always fun. You eat millipedes, make fires, build shelters, and try to live on the land around you in a video game. Minecraft only wishes its survival gameplay was this intense. The better you are, the more you unlock, though this thing is glitchy. Not just on a clear licensed shovelware jank level, but a you accidentally broke the sequence of events and cannot finish the level anymore jank. I was supposed to grab a rope at the beginning, which I did, but for some reason I went back too soon and now Bear just keeps pointing for me to go back. I can't exit this area, so I'm here forever. Nice. I don't really know why Crave Entertainment made this, but Man vs. Wild, the game, definitely seems like something you'd find on a shelf at a Bass Pro Shop or Cabela's, right next to the Wii hunting rifles and the NASCAR simulator. This thing, kind of like Bear after spending several days drinking his own urine, is kind of smelly, but it does have the honor of being the only game out there where the first extra you unlock is a shirtless photo of Mr. Grills. Who is this for? Well, that was wild. Let's speed things up a bit. We're approaching like full shovelware territory, so going forward, there's gonna be a couple things that I'm not gonna be able to say much about. Some show concepts are really one note and don't necessarily lead to good video game ideas, like for example, Hole in the Wall. Yeah, you know, the show where you try your best to fit into a hole in a moving wall. Originally Brain Wall from Japan, this thing got adapted overseas in multiple locations. It just goes to show that watching people get slapsticked around will always be funny. So bringing back everyone's favorite, the Kinect, Hole in the Wall for the Xbox 360 is exactly what you'd think it would be. And I guess it kinda works, though my favorite part is how it keeps losing track of me so I can't fit into anything. This hole is for me, at least I thought, but falling into acid and dying is close enough. At the very least, this thing takes real screenshots with the camera so you can see my dead eyes. My body was the controller. We mentioned it earlier, but reality game shows have been in gaming for as long as it's been around. You're able to find a version of Jeopardy or Price is Right on just about every platform, but there's also the occasional fad rolling around and getting itself an adaptation. Like Double Dare on the NES, a trivia and obstacle course platformer, one with some of the most unsettling kids I've ever seen. There's also MTV Remote Control, a trivia show about television and music. Guess the music video, win the prize.
The police.
Yes!
Ah yes, Joni Loves Chachi trivia. I'm sure this will hold up in the 2020s. A lot of these are just minigame collections like Minute to Win It. Then you've got Deal or No Deal. Why? Why does this need to be a game? Maybe it's bobblehead Howie Mandel? I have no idea. Just like I don't know why anyone thought that Cesar Millan's Dog Whisperer should get a video game. No, I'm not joking. If you're thinking to yourself, why would anyone make this? My answer for you is Ubisoft. Dog Whisperer is a show about a guy that works with dogs. He takes the so-called problem animals and does his best to help them correct behavior. Be it psychological and serious or the fact that they're just little sucky babies, Cesar Millan's on the case. Though all I can think about is that war flashbacks dog gif from the old internet. Well, we're taking that show concept, which was actually wholesome, and turning it into a video game. Cesar Millan's Dog Whisperer, the game. This is like one of those things you saw sitting at Circuit City up until the day it closed. It is an earnest attempt to be educational while doing the most mundane things like walking a dog or taking a food bowl away from a dog. Certainly somebody enjoyed this, but all I know is that there's a submissive dominant meter on the top right of the screen at all times, and that's enough for me and the internet. Bad boy. Never say that, unless you're singing the Cops theme song. And what's the total opposite of wholesome television? Cops actually had an arcade game, one published by Atari. I just unfortunately can't seem to emulate it for any actual footage. The cabinet has a steering wheel and a light gun, but there's just no good gameplay out on the internet for this thing, so I can't really get into it. So if you want a title based on a reality TV show about cops, you gotta get yourself a copy of World's Scariest Police Chases. Ah yes, inappropriate fear-mongering television. Everyone's favorite. World's Scariest Police Chases for the PlayStation 1. Never before has a television show been translated so perfectly into a video game. Oh yeah, perfect. Police Chases is actually a little ambitious for a PlayStation 1 release. It did come out all the way in 2001, a tiny bit before Grand Theft Auto 3, but it has this free patrol mode where you roam around in an open city looking for suspects. What do they do wrong? Doesn't matter. Get them. There's not too much to do in this one. You just find guys and ram them or blast away in order to make an arrest. The lock-on system works better than you would expect, and it actually supports 2 players for whoever's got a sucker friend to do that with. There's a mission mode which serves as training with a variety of map styles, and there's a decent idea here, but it's severely limited by the hardware. The concept's not my favorite, but it's definitely impressive. And unlike most of the shovelware products in this video, it's an actual video game with things to do. At a certain point, it stops taking itself seriously and has you chasing down tanks and driving a pizza truck. You'll just be done with it in less than 2 hours. You can roam around in free patrol, and I guess for the 100 people that played this growing up, it's probably a big dose of nostalgia. Anyways, no more actual video games, it's time to talk about a big ol' nothing, like The Amazing Race for the Wii. I loved watching the show growing up. You take a bunch of teams of 2 and then have them compete to get to whatever destination first while performing ridiculous tasks. It's like someone took Street Fighter and turned it into a tourist trap, and I myself wouldn't mind a free vacation while terrorizing other players at every detour and U-turn. Published once again Eruption by Ubisoft, I'm noticing a trend, The Amazing Race is not playable by yourself. It, like the show, requires a second player, which is weird considering the only thing to do here is basic math. Do you spend a little more money for a slightly faster flight? How many objects are on the screen? What's the sum of the cars minus the trucks? Amazing Race for the Wii is a nothing experience meant to be shared with someone you presumably like, but I'd never do that to somebody. So I just had to plug in 2 Wiimotes and make a little magic happen. But if you are gonna play it, I hope you like low resolution photos of beautiful vistas that you're never gonna visit yourself. You smelly gamer. Speaking of sitting comfortably from your own couch, there's one reality show that found a way to commercialize the concept of suffering for other people's enjoyment, and that's gonna be our last topic for the day. I think the world's most popular reality TV show, and the one that's been on the air the most consistently, has to be Survivor. You take a bunch of contestants, put them on teams, strand them in the middle of nowhere, and give them the bare minimum. Millions of viewers each week. Good old Jeff Probst has been there the entire time, and it's got not 1, not 2, but 4 different video games. And for reality TV show games, that's a lot. I think most people know the concept of Survivor these days, but in case you don't, it's simple. Split into teams, compete against others in obstacle courses and physical challenges for immunity. The losers pick somebody to vote out. Eventually, you try to be the last one standing, the sole survivor. Also, you're probably really hungry. If you've ever wanted to hear people moan inappropriately over a slice of pizza, this is the show for you.
Massive ribs, oh my god, and a cold beer.
So, starting out in 2001, pretty much right out of the gate, we'd get Survivor the Interactive Game. Published by Infogrames of all people, which of course means it's not better than God Hand. This first attempt is rough. You pick from a mix of contestants from the first 2 seasons and do the whole surviving thing. There's a mix of tribe politics and physical challenges, all which have the bare minimum of interactivity. This comes off like more of a sim, but one with dialogue that barely makes any sense. Sometimes I don't know who to trust. Don't you trust me? What's bothering you? I'm worried about tribal council. I don't trust you one bit. I hope you don't really believe that. Suit yourself. What is this? A Twitter interaction? Survivor the Interactive Game is not worth playing at all. So of course they'd follow it up with a sequel 1 year later, Survivor Ultimate. This one's a little better. It leans more into the puzzle aspect with the challenges and totally removed any instance of 3D gameplay. Instead, we get fun CG pre-renders of the cast doing their voting. You still engage in a little alliance drama between the challenges and episodes, but this whole thing's a lot closer to your Kickstart 4th grade than, you know, Survivor Outwit, Outplay, Outlast. Also, not worth playing.
The tribe has spoken.
In the 2010s, Survivor had a bit of a renaissance thanks to a couple players making things as drama-filled as possible, namely Russell Hantz. Lying every day, baby.
It's a lot harder than you really think.
Around the same time, we'd see CBS and Mindscape team up to bring us Survivor and Survivor for the Nintendo family of consoles. 2 very different releases. First up, the handheld. Yo, this sounds like Donkey Kong Country 2. Survivor DS might be the closest any of these reality TV games has gotten to replicating the show. Like, legit, you create your contestant and join a tribe. The character creation is about as much as I could expect out of a licensed DS game. Look how huge I am. Then we're off to do some Survivor things. You pick up wood, build fires, scavenge for food. You even talk to other players on your team in order to try and gain their favor and form alliances. Every other day, you've got a reward or immunity challenge followed up by a tribal council where you'll vote people out. It's not like the Dog Whisperer where the existence of a video game makes no sense. This is a decent take on it. That is, if you got the patience, as this is very repetitive. Every single day is spent running around in a circle, gathering the same stuff and having conversations with polygons who like to sit around and complain. The challenges are weirdly difficult too, and I was unable to beat a single one because, well, stylus and emulation, but also I guess Austin sucks. I love how Jeff's model is vastly superior to everyone else's. Even his pre-render looks nice as he reminds you to eat so you don't die. I didn't, so I died. Survivor on the DS is better than I thought, but how about the Wii version? Sharing the same box art, developer, and weird model of Jeffrey, Weavivor is not close to the source material. While the DS version has the day-to-day resembling the show, the Wii release is just an onslaught of one-on-one minigames, resulting in your tribe voting off another tribe's player. Apparently, you can be the sole survivor as a team. Yeah, everyone's a winner. You don't get to create a character this time around, you instead pick digitized versions of real contestants on the show. Lucky for me, there was actually a guy named Austin. Each character has certain minigames to perform better at, so you want to pick them to do it, which also means if you win, you want to try and vote off characters with minigame specializations. It's actually not a terrible concept for multiplayer, it just lacks, I don't know, any character. It looks like Survivor, it sounds like Survivor. You've even got Jeff doing voiceover, telling people they're going home.
You just won the immunity challenge.
But the character models look terrible. The games are all variations of waggle the Wiimote in whatever direction, and are less about skill and more about hoping the controller registers your movement properly. There's one where you have to dodge logs rolling down a river, and it's impossible to visualize properly. Rowing a boat feels totally broken, and the best ones are all rail shooters. Like, we might as well just boot up Sin and Punishment. I do like how extreme they get. In the TV show, you're like balancing something for an hour, but here you're moving rocks while defending yourself from sharks, which would totally not get everyone sued. At the end of the day, Weaviver is a collection of mini games and not much else. At the very least, it did its best to resemble the source material, but the lack of things to do makes titles like Duck Dynasty, roller games, and even Police Chases stand out way more. We shovelware minigame collections are at this point just as lost in era as reality television games. And combining these together is practically half this video. Some of these concepts deserve way more for sure. I'd love to see a proper Survivor game. Something between Among Us and Rust. Does anyone else want this? Am I crazy? Survivor on the DS is probably the best one of these, by like a smidge. However, when all's said and done, at least I got a little treat just for me.
Austin, they've decided to vote you off, and their decision is final.
And so, there you have it, the lost era of reality TV show video games. That's a mouthful. While I may have been voted off the island, I think I actually covered everything for once. A few shovelware non-games may have slipped through the crack. I mean, I'm sure the Kinect version of A Minute to Win It is somebody's favorite out there, but 2 Kinect games in one video is enough for me. Let's say that you got to pick one reality TV show to turn into a video game. What would you go with? If I had to pick one, I'd probably go with The Mole, but only if Anderson Cooper comes back. I know that he won't. I don't even really want it. I think I just miss being 10. If you liked today's video, let me know. If you want to support the channel, make sure to check out today's sponsor. Pledge on the Patreon, buy a t-shirt, give me a like, a subscription. Y'all know all the things to do. There's so much. I can't keep up with it. Anyways, I've been Austin. I got some good smelling enchiladas in the oven, and catch me next time when we for real finish the Square Enix trilogy. Avengers, here we come. Thank you so much for watching. Special Patreon shout out to Aaron Kwolek, Blackfoot Ferret, Blake Thomas, Cheeks, Chris Shelton, Doug Prince, DX Buster, David Molnar, Elijah, GM Pinks, Hey Quiggles, Idlewise, Jay Roos, Jacoby Fitzpatrick, Kevin Zanowski, Karen Arter, Nick Irving, Ryan Talbert, and Vox. Thank you all so much for your generous support. Happy July. It's a month in the year. We're so close to getting Avengers out. It should be out in the next 2 weeks, but that's not the only thing we're doing this year. There's a bunch of content coming on the way. So get excited, or not. I can't control you. Can't even control my own cats. They just run and scream. In case anyone was wondering, Final Fantasy 16's been pretty good so far. I'm not done. Hopefully we'll be done soon. It's nice to feel excited about things. Video games are cool, and yeah. Also, follow me on Blue Sky if you got that. It's just Austin Eruption. Twitter sucks.